Well, as the Chinese gear up to meet their own growing energy demand, the United States energy officials are saying that our demand is not outpacing supply. That's very good news for us here in the U.S. Clean Sky's Dee Bombani has been immersed so far today in the EIA's new Energy Outlook, which came out just today. Dee, let's talk about what exactly is in our energy future, according to the administration.
Well, the federal government's chief energy analyst says that by 2035, the U.S. will reduce its dependence on foreign oil and increase its use of renewable energy. While the White House is pushing to decrease emissions by 17% by 2020, though, the U.S. is expected to increase its carbon emissions by nearly 10% by 2035. Now, the Energy Information Administration released its annual Energy Outlook for 2010 today. Here's some of the highlights. Energy consumption in 2035 grows by 14%. Use of liquid fuels grows from 19 million barrels a day to 22 million barrels a day because of an increase in biofuels use and production. Domestic natural gas production grows from 20 trillion cubic feet to 23 trillion cubic feet in 2035. Overall, fossil fuel use falls, and that falls to about 78% in 2035. Crude production is right now about 5 million barrels a day. That grows to about 6 million barrels a day and stays that way for the next 25 years. Now, without giving a full analysis, EIA Administrator Richard Newell said oil prices peaked last summer at more than $100 a barrel. Now, oil is expected to trade at about $133 a barrel by 2035. OPEC is expected to keep about 40% of world oil production over 25 years, but oil consumption remains flat here in the U.S., and therefore foreign imports will be down. Now, renewables are expected to grow, as is energy efficiency. By 2035, solar energy is expected to be 0.5% of all electric generation. Newell says that's growth, though, compared to how solar fares now, at 0.5% of U.S. generation. Renewable energy will play a greater role, notwithstanding the production tax credit, which is set to expire in 2012. But in fact, EIA says any new additions to electric generation will mean more use of natural gas and sources like solar and wind. Now, the amount of energy generated from renewables grows to about 4% from 1% as it is now. And by 2035, the amount of generation from natural gas will increase 21%. Newell noted that the forecast is without consideration of a climate bill being discussed in the Senate. It doesn't take into account the consequences of EPA's recent endangerment finding, which could impose strict carbon emission limits. Now, the forecast does not include an account for an additional tax credits for renewable energy or fuel economy standards. The EIA is expected to release a full explanation of its forecast in the coming weeks, so Tyler.
And everything could change between now and then to some degree, it sounds like, Dee. You mentioned the biofuels and the fact they'd be playing a larger role in the liquid fuel mix. Will there be enough to meet the mandates set out in the Energy Independence and Security Act? This was back in 2007. A number of questions about whether we can actually reach that ceiling for this production here in the U.S.
Well, the short answer is no, according to the EIA. Congress requires 36 billion gallons of biofuels to be in the gasoline mix by 2022. And Newell said that would require 27 biofuel plants that can produce 50 million gallons of biofuels per year over 12 years to meet that. So it's probably not going to happen. The EIA expects the industry to produce about less than 30 billion gallons by 2035, though.
Well below what it calls for. All right, Dee Bombani, thank you.